my introduction is, you can read it on the sheet if some of you may have, but I've actually been to Carefree, and I've been to Susanne Wilson's, I guess it's office, place where she operates, and she was giving a talk on Reiki, and I was impressed. She did a beautiful job. Susanne Wilson.
This is astral travel. This is normal. She has a gift. I now look back and realize that my grandfather also was a medium, but he was in the closet because he was a Presbyterian preacher. He would take me to nursing homes and to people's houses when they were close to death and minister to them. And I can remember sitting out in the hallway in these nursing homes, because we didn't have hospice then. You either died at home in a hospital or in a nursing home. So I'm sitting out in the hallway, and I can remember seeing spirit people walking up and down the hall. And I remember one time I was sitting in this chair in the hall waiting for my granddad, and I stood up because I saw the spirit of the man he was ministering to in the room walk by me, give me this little wave, and just continue on and disappear. So I'm standing there waiting for my granddad, and he comes out and says, "You know." Yes, I know. He really helped me understand that my abilities were okay, but after he died, I went the exact opposite way. All I wanted to do was not be thought of as a woo-woo person. I wanted to be taken seriously, so I tried to put this all aside. Recently, I was doing a past life regression with a client, and there were 5 lives where she was able to identify that she did not finish writing her book of poetry. 5 lives. That's in a common theme. So I asked her at the end of the session, "So what are you going to do now?" She'll write that book of poetry. In one life, somebody told her, "You're no good. Your work's pedestrian." And so she threw everything in a drawer. In another life, she was married to a man who said, "You should focus on the children in the kitchen." But she let all of these things sidetrack her. She's going to self-publish this book of poetry. It doesn't matter if she becomes famous or a celebrity. What matters, and what I'm here to tell you, is please align your personality with your soul. That's why you're here. Once you get to the afterlife, there isn't anything like to rub up against. There's no friction, there's no conflict. You can't learn anything. I mean, you can go to classes, you can study, I'm sure, but to learn on a soul level, you have to come to this classroom called Earth. And while we're here to, as quickly as we can, identify our unique gifts and leverage them to help ourselves and to help others, to give and receive as much compassion as we possibly can. And when I say and receive compassion, I'm talking to all of you because I'm sure there are people here that are givers, 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 givers. But it's equally as important to be compassionate with yourself and to reach out for help and accept help when you need it. Everyone has a gift. I kind of just rankle when somebody says, "Oh, you're so special, Suzanne, you have this great gift." No, I have an ability. You are a gift, and you are a gift. Each of us has something within us that when we align our personalities with our souls, we are able to serve our soul's purpose and to help others right in place where we are. The Creator provides that opportunity. So, the near-death experience, June 2007. I'm living in Florida at the time. I had this big corporate job in human resources for a $5 billion company, and my allergies are killing me. So I go to the allergy specialist, and you know how they do those tests where they punch in your arms? I was at my second test where they amp up how much of the allergen they put into your arms. And I mean, I had both arms just covered. I started feeling nauseated. And I said, I'm sick to my stomach, it's hot in here. And the technician said, well, I'll turn up the air conditioning. And I said, no, something's wrong, I can feel it. And then she looked all shiny and flat and one-dimensional to me, and I felt myself step backwards out of my body. And then everything went into slow motion. I could see that 2 doctors had run into the room. I could see that they were holding me up. There was a woman on one side of me holding my arm and a woman on the other side. And I could see them preparing an epinephrine injection, which I didn't know what it was then, but I do now. But this was happening so slowly that in that minute, I got to have this amazing experience. I felt the arms of my granddad holding on to me. I couldn't see him. He was like he was all around me, and I could feel him, and I knew it was him. What I was listening to was the most incredible music I've ever heard in my life. There's no duplicating this music. It was as though there were thousands of angel voices singing together like instruments, and it was all major keys. It was crescendoing, going up in waves, and it felt so good, and I felt so good, and I was ready for this adventure. This is the best out-of-body experience I have ever had, and I know that I'm having it. I'm completely lucid. And then, as I start seeing all these colors, I saw that needle, that epinephrine injection go into my arm. Uh-oh. Then I hear, your work hasn't started yet. And then, bam, I'm back in my body, and my chest is on fire, and I feel like I'm on fire, and it's so painful. My whole body is hurting and shaking. The paramedics are there, they're putting me on this gurney, and in the ambulance, there floating above me was my grandfather. I could see him now, I knew it was him, and he was just smiling. Now, I didn't think this was a near-death experience at the time. I thought, to qualify as a near-death experience, you must be on the operating table and clinically dead, and 5 doctors have to document it, and there must be proof. So I called it my wake-up call. Maybe you've had a wake-up call before. The universe gets your attention to get you to align your personality and your soul, to do what's really you. The main thing that I've learned here is you can't hide from who you are. And there's no shame in being ashamed of feeling different from others. That feeling is to draw your attention to who you are and who you must be, or you're going to be coming back again and maybe having a tougher time of it, feeling even more different next time. You'll never know how many lives you've touched until you get to the other side. Just trust that there is a divine plan. Trust that everything will be all right. And trust that no matter what, you are blessed. So what happens after this near-death experience? I want to hug everybody. And can you imagine in corporate HR with all these executive vice presidents? I remember going into a meeting, and I'm here to talk about your department's sexual harassment training. Oh, give me a hug. How's your mom? I knew they were going to end up firing me. So I made a plan to divest myself. My husband was at a point where it's like, yeah, let's sell the wine and spirits stores. Where do you want to go? Arizona is so spiritual. It feels so good to me. We have some family here, but mainly it just feels so right. And in past life regression with Dr. Brian Weiss, I found out I have lived here before. I have been here before. And I believe that in that life, I didn't align my personality with my soul. It was all about work. It was all about survival. It was 1870s Wild West. So now, whenever an opportunity presents itself to me to help someone, or an opportunity presents itself to me that somebody's really pissing me off, I know that that experience is a gift. We stand to learn the most about ourselves by how we handle the people and situations that really rub up against us. Because remember when I was saying, in the afterlife, there's not any conflict. You don't get put in these tough situations of chronic pain, death of a loved one, loss of a job, divorce. You come here to have these experiences to evolve. That's all it's about, is your evolution as a soul. So today, I'm happy to say, I don't have any kind of pull to the corporate world. I have no sense of, oh my gosh, I've wasted my education. I think every experience that I had has led up to this moment where I have a wide range of life experiences and travel, and I know that on some level I can relate to people from any walk of life, and if I help someone heal in some way, even just a little bit, then I've done my greater work. And I want to challenge all of you to look at your lives on a day-to-day basis. An extra smile, an extra step that you take for someone, even holding the door open for someone. I know it's not considered politically correct to hold open the door. I do it for people all the time. Going out of your way to help somebody just by listening. Maybe your gift is that you are a parent, a good listener, a builder, a poet, an artist. Whatever it is, get busy, identify it, and use it. Leverage it to align your personality and your soul. Or guess what? The universe will give you a wake-up call. Maybe you've already had one. We are all children of the Creator. We're never alone. Love lives forever. And this so-called veil between worlds, I think, is just a quantum physical manifestation of our all too human belief that somehow we're apart from the Creator and each other. We are one. Thank you.
I got to introduce you.
Okay.
Yeah. Remember the first time I ever met you? You don't even know it. We were at an afterlife communication conference up in Scottsdale.
I remember now.
We were waiting to get into the large room, and you came out, and you were trying to keep everybody happy, and you said, "Welcome to the land of liquid sunshine." And I remember that. And I said, I like this guy because he's fun.
Thank you, Larry. So Billy Graham is 95 years old, okay? He just got off the road for 3 months of travel. He's tired. He flies into Charlotte, North Carolina. He walks outside, and there's this beautiful, long, black stretch limousine. The window goes down. He sees the young fellow there. He goes, "Sir, I'm Billy Graham. I'm 95 years old. I've never driven a stretch limousine. Would you let me?" "Yes, sir, Mr. Graham." "Sure, go." Billy takes off like a bat out of hell. He's doing about 95 miles an hour. State trooper, first time he's doing a speed trap. Billy goes by. He hops on his motorcycle, takes off, and pulls the limo over. The window goes down, and he recognizes Billy Graham. He goes, excuse me, sir, I need to call my supervisor. He calls his supervisor, and he goes, sir, do we do special things for VIPs? He goes, we do. He goes, who is it, the mayor? Oh no, it's more important than that. Is it the governor? No, more important than that. Well, who is it, son? I think it's Jesus, because Billy Graham's his chauffeur. Yeah, we do have fun at the Logo Center in Scottsdale where I'm a minister, I can tell you that. But I was born at 6 months. My mother could hold both me and my twin brother Keith in one hand. That's how small we were. We were so small they put us in one incubator. And we tussled and tossed and turned, so they separated us, and they really turned the juice up on my brother. And consequently, he became brain damaged and blind. Okay? So when I was 2-3 years old, he couldn't come into my world to play, so he pulled me out into the web. And I found out that that's where all the special needs kids hang out, on the web. That's why they always seem like they're in a good mood, regardless of their handicaps, is because they're out there playing in paradise. They're in heaven. So I learned to play in paradise at a very, very young age. So consequently, my brother got a teacher, Rafe Williams, who became my guru. And he taught me about all the great religions and spiritual disciplines as a little boy. He would take me to the Theosophical Society, H.P. Blavatsky, people like that. And so when I was 12, 13 years old, I was talking to swamis from India. And they were teaching me all these disciplines. So at about 13, like the Christ, I didn't hang out with kids. I hung out with adults. And my real love and my real passion were the elderly. I learned very quickly that the greatest education is at the feet of the elders. And it's true. If you want to read about history, go to the library. If you want to hear it first person, visit someone who's an elder. And that's what I learned from those lessons. It was absolutely wonderful. So I'm 19 years old, and I'm talking to two of my buddies, and I'm living in Miami, Florida, and we were deciding between going to Florida State University in Tallahassee or Gainesville, which is the University of Florida. So we flipped a coin and we said, okay, we're going to go to Tallahassee, Florida next weekend. That night I had a dream. I dreamed we were on the freeway, I-95 in Florida, and a semi pulled out in front of us and we drove underneath it. And I got killed. So I told my mother the story and she goes, you are not going to Tallahassee. I said, Mom, it's a premonition. I'm going to be okay. Following Friday, we hop in the car, boom, we go up to Tallahassee. Sunday, we're driving back. We're doing about 90 miles an hour like Billy, right? Semi's on the side of the road, pulls in front of our car, and we drive underneath it. And I break my jaw in half. I used to have a Jay Leno chin, believe it or not. Okay? And so 2 days later, they brought me down to Florida. And what they do is they wire your jaw shut. They don't put a cast on your head. So I'm in the post-op room. They just operated on me. I can't open my jaw, and I regurgitate. And the nurse was gone. So all of a sudden, like Susanne, I was cruising. I'm up on the ceiling looking down at myself in the gurney. And I was aware of what was going on, though. So as time progressed, this consciousness began to shrink, and a whole nother universal consciousness began to become dominant. Universal consciousness. I was connecting back with the divine, like Susanne talks about. And I could feel entities on my left, my right, bottom, top, and rear. I didn't see any in front of me. And yes, we did. We did float towards something. It wasn't just a bright light. What I saw was this radiant, euphoric gold being. And as I looked at this being, it just wasn't a color. It was doing this. God is alive in the universe. It was an actual living God, breathing, alive out there. And I had a conversation with the divine. And all of a sudden I look, and it's like the old Charlie Chaplin movies. Boom, 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 boom. Lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. I saw hundreds of lifetimes. And I was able to pull the pith and the essence out of each one of those experiences. And then the divine gave me a choice. He goes, you have a choice to either stay here on this side, or you can go back and be in the physical again. And I said, I need to go back to the physical to serve. I need to serve every day. And it was just like I was trout fishing. I felt this cord being jerked like this. I felt my soul being pulled back. Bang! I'm back in my body. All right? And that's what happened to me. That's what changed my life permanently. So consequently, I devoted most of my life working with special needs children because I still remembered how to go out on the web and play with them. I was an instructor at Sunland Training Center in Florida, and I would walk into the room, and the kids would be full of joy. And then they'd pull me out on the web, and they had no handicaps at all. At all. They made a conscious decision to come to Earth that way, to be the teachers. I can remember before I was born having a soul conversation with my twin brother, and he goes, "I will not appear as you think I might appear when we land." And consequently, that is what happened to him. That is what happened to him. Real pleasure meeting each and every one of you again. Namaste.
Good job. Our next speaker is James Whatley, and for a long time he said, "Why don't you have me as a speaker?" And I says, "Well, you haven't had any near-death experience." And he says, "Well, I've had a lot of out-of-body experiences." And then I started to think, and I changed my way of thinking. James has had a lot of out-of-body experiences which have taught him a lot, which actually helped him become a certified medium. 1971? Wow. Anyway, let's give a big hand for James Whatley.
You get the right name?
No, I haven't.
All right, Ken. There we go.
Good thing I
Awesome,
got it.
thank you. Begin somewhere. In my case, in my mid-20s, I was working for a bank. You hear me okay? And that's better. How's that?
Hold in your hand.
That's better. Okay. So I went to get my shirts done. And the lady behind the counter was a medium. I had no clue. I was about 25. And across the aisle from the counter was a magazine rack, and there was this little magazine called Fate. In the magazine was an article about astral projection. I had no idea. So I read that. Around that time, you know, after reading that, I said, I need to learn more. So, short while later, I purchased this book. This is a first edition, 1966. Study and Practice of Astral Projection book. I still have it. So I read the book, and I thought, well, I will see if I can do this, right? I was living in a old home in Lodi, California, and I had an upstairs apartment, and the walls went like that. I paid $50 a month for this apartment. So I was going to practice a technique, and basically what you're taught is a auto-hypnotic method. Relax the toes, the ankles, and so forth, up your legs, through your torso, and so on. It's an auto-hypnotic technique. So I started practicing it. It took me 3 months. I was kind of timid about it, a little bit scared about it. I was in total darkness. And as I would look into the darkness, I saw a whole series of pairs of eyes in the darkness. Well, that's kind of spooky. Remember, I'm a neophyte at this point. So it began. So once I started getting over my fear, I started hearing, this is what's called a clairaudient sound, which is a clear hearing. It's an intercranial sound that you hear, no one else hears. So as I began to lift out of my body, I felt a staccato, rumbling type of sound. It was a real low sound, and it was something like this. I don't know if everyone experiences that, but I did. So finally, I got enough courage, I went out. And I could see myself, well, this is pretty cool. So I started having more, and I had involuntary ones. And this went on for years, and to this day. So, what did this do for me? Number one, it became a catapult to get me out of any religion because I belonged to a whole bunch of them. I've been sprinkled in oil and dunked, the whole thing. Oh, did all that stuff. And whenever I would ask any of those people questions, they would put me in the kook category type of thing, you know. So I learned that maybe that's not for me. So, wow. I began to start reading. I have a huge library. If you see me afterwards, I'll tell you the gateway to take a look at that because it took 3 months to build it. So you can go in there and this book might be tasty or this one, they're all categorized. So that's available to you if you want to see me afterwards. So that thirst for knowledge is insatiable. Just last night I was into Amazon and I was looking at someone else's book. Well, gee, I don't have that one. Well, this would be pretty good. So that was in the mid-60s. This August, I will be 75 years old. This will represent 50 years of this soul's particular incarnation to absorb as much as he can, to relate to as many people as possible, to help wake up as many people as possible, to show them that there's so much more. The veil that Susanne talks about, you know what? That's a very thin membrane. What she does, or Kent does, or I do, everyone can. It's not just to particular people. We've done our inner work. We, in some cases, we like to absorb literature and experiences. It goes on. The exciting part of it is that we get a great fulfillment out of the whole deal. It is so fulfilling. It's so nourishing. We learn that the creator of all loves us way beyond what we think about love. In my case, I have a particular phenomena that's been occurring for about 5 years. There's a little book by, pink book, Angel Numbers by Doreen Virtue, like 0 to 999. About 5 years ago, I'm a side sleeper. I had that book on my nightstand, I still do today, and I have a little clock. And one morning, real early, I don't remember the time, I had like a French telephone type of ringing, right? To our audience, right? Ring, 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 ring. Oh, man, what's this? And I said, you know what? I think something's going on here. So I looked at the little clock, which gave me number, right? I grabbed the book and looked it up. I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. I've been, there was a time I had them in a Word file, and today I get them. I just had one the other day. I send myself a text. So I got a whole log of text, and then I take and forward that to some of my friends or clients. And I had asked many times, is this spirit guide? Who's this, some master? Where's all this coming from? And I'm a dowser. I've been dowsing since forever. I don't know if you know what dowsing is. It's using a pendulum. So finally got down to the realization that the Creator was talking to me and found this way that I could relate to in sending these messages. So then, this is great. I get more. And the thing is with this type of phenomenon, if you want to call it that, or anything else that you do, there's a action that takes place from the creative source called the Law 51. So you think, well, what is that? Whenever, particularly your subconscious buys into something to put into place into the conscious level, whenever that is accepted, right? And at the conscious level, well, this is good, this feels good, this is right, you get more. because it goes over the tipping point of 50%. That's where the term Law 51 comes in. And then more of that type of thing starts happening to you. In my case, with the angel number book and those things, I began very much like Neil Donald Walsh to have a conversation with God. The fact is, God talks to everyone. It may be through a little number book, or however it may be, there are signs that come to us, and all you have to do is recognize it. Once you recognize and accept that the Creator talks to you, you can have an ongoing dialogue with the Creator. So I have questions going on with me. In an instant, I get this message. It's going to be all right, or this is going to happen, or for this person, whatever it might be. It happens instantly. This also means that we have to take a responsibility. And I have found, I've had circumstances 30 years ago, I still remember to this day, where I had a certain circumstance where I needed something. I didn't have the money for it. And so what occurred about a half hour later in this particular episode, I went to a place and it gave me the thing. So the Creator provides. He provides with His love. He provides with the messages, and you have the ongoing dialogue, what's going on with your life. Everyone else can. I'm no different. No one that hangs a shingle out, so to speak, is any different. All of us can. All of us can. And that's this book. This one here, I also recommend very highly. And this fellow here, Lois Enochs, Demystifying the Out-of-Body Experience. And you think, well, what are the benefits for doing this? And I have to let you know, everyone does it. Everyone. You go to sleep, you lift out. And the dream that you think you have, or the conversation with your mother that's passed away at the seaside, you really were there, and you did talk with her. That happens a lot. So he says here, and as to a benefit, promoting increased happiness and general well-being, improving interpersonal relationships, losing the fear of death. I have zero fear of death. That doesn't mean I want it to happen in the next 5 minutes, but it does mean that when it occurs, I know, for me, as a fact, I will continue. John Lennon once said, you know, dying is like getting out of one car into another. He said that. So you can contact your relatives or friends who have passed away, understanding that the physical life more profoundly and why it is the way it is. As Susanne says, this is a schoolhouse. This is 1%. 1% of the spiritual or heavenly world. We are in a living hologram, if you will, of the spiritual world. You could call it the Truman Show, maybe. That was a cool movie, right? Remember that? So, this reality as we perceive it with the five senses in the third dimension is a experiential, because we have free will, of the soul's blueprint. Believe me, we picked it all out. We picked our friends, we picked this meeting, we picked our wives, we picked our husband, we picked our children. We picked all that stuff out. And then we didn't have the experience. So what I've learned out of all of it is to be more and more observational. Why this and why that, and what am I experiencing with person A, B, and C, and so forth. So I take a look at that. I take it very seriously. And you develop a wide-angle lens out of the whole thing. And it is so fulfilling because you pick up energies with people. I pick it up immediately. And that comes from being an observer, comes from a young man, I had no idea why, began watching people. And you know, you can, with this under your belt, see someone and know in just a few minutes tons of stuff about them. So, and tons of stuff about yourself. You help other individuals while projected? Absolutely. replacing beliefs about what you have. So the benefits for conscious, voluntary, out-of-the-body experiences goes through the roof. I would suggest that anyone that's really wants to grab onto that idea, get this book. Another very famous author, this is William Pullman. He's written many books, and this is also excellent. Besides the books, there's a fantastic thing on the internet called YouTube. I go there a lot. You can go there and listen to tons of his videos and other authors without even purchasing the book. So that is some ways where you can learn, let's say without getting a big stack of books. Well, my library is so filled, all the bookcases are filled, and I have books lining up in my bedroom along the wall now because I can't stop it. And maybe Susanne will key into me and say, James, haven't you read it now? I don't know. I like it. It's fun. It's fun. So, the out-of-body experience is for everybody. You have the phenomena like what I mentioned. You can invite more of that. And how to start to initiate some of that, Deepak Chopra said very clearly, you meditate. You meditate. Wayne Dyer has a new Wishes Fulfilled program, and he has a CD, meditation CD, about the I Am. That's another suggestion. Get yourself a copy of that. You don't have to get the whole program. Go on Amazon and just buy the CD. And it's an excellent CD all about I am that I am. So that's what my experience has been in helping many people that come to me for counsel or a class to open their intuitive abilities. Everyone has it. I want to close today with a statement made by a master teacher. I think we all know him. So what he said in his last words, in his language, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, as best as I can pronounce it. My Lord or my God, for this I was kept. That's what he said, which basically means he was fulfilling his life purpose. Just like all of us are. I'm fulfilling my life purpose. And in August, coming up, 75, and I will have a party. Anyone that wants to come to my place and bring food. You don't have to bring a gift. You can bring food. That's okay. I'm going to have a party, and maybe my daughter will come in from Omaha and join me for my 75th party. That's in the latter part of August. I'm a Leo Virgo, so August 22nd. So there you are, my friends. I'm so glad that I was able to come today and speak from my heart about the potential that all of us have. Everyone in this room is and have been, maybe for a second, doesn't matter if you got a business card, you're hanging out your seat, you have had experiences in your life that were mediumistic or psychic. Psychic, from the Greek, psyche, meaning self or mind. That's all that it is, psychic. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Lois Enochs.
Well, I've got some bad news for you, Larry. I was so engrossed in what everybody was saying, I've totally forgotten my 20-minute version of this. She wants to put what to leave out. But when I was 21 years old, I had to go to the hospital to have some surgery. It was a rather serious surgery, but also a rather common one. Certainly no problems were anticipated. What happened was the first night following the surgery, the night nurse decided she had too much paperwork to tend to me as she should have. So my recovery started off a little slow. After 3 or 4 days, I'm guessing, yeah, 3 or 4 days, I started feeling better. As I started feeling better, I was really missing my daughter. I'm 21 years old. I've got a 2.5-year-old beautiful little girl, and I'm missing her. I had not been away from her. So I had family bring her to the hospital. Children not allowed in those days, but small town, small hospital. I'm on the first floor. There's a window. So they bring her to the lawn, and we wave and blow kisses and things young mothers and little babies do. And I felt better. And I started healing faster. A few days later, I was scheduled to leave the hospital and go home. I woke up that morning, and thank goodness, the head nurse was right beside my bed, because when I woke up, I had an extraordinary pain in my back on the left side. She started asking questions. Where does it hurt? How long does it hurt? I said, it's just a pain. I slept crooked, okay? You know, I'm going home. She ran out of the room and she came back, and she had with her a young man with a wheelchair and said, you're going to lab and x-ray. I said, no, I am going home. Well, I went to lab and x-ray. Again, small hospital. It didn't take 15 minutes to get downstairs, take a picture, draw blood, and I'm back upstairs. By the time I got back to my hospital room, I was so sick that I needed help getting out of the wheelchair and into bed. I remember very clearly crawling in on my hands and knees into the bed and covering up. And there I lay for the next 5 days and nights with a temperature that was spent most of its time at 105. Now, all the caretakers knew was my temperature was 105, and what would happen, I could think very, very clearly. My mind was very much intact, and thank God I was blessed with a good mind, so I'm doing all this thinking. But when I would try to talk, nothing would come out but pure babble. And then, having a good sense of humor, I would start laughing at what I heard come out of my own mouth, no matter what I tried to say. So, you know, the caretaker's 105, babble, laugh, she's a goner. And I would hear them guessing how many days I would live yet. And I knew they were doing nothing but keeping me comfortable, and bless them for that. But I knew I had to take it into my own hands. And I knew that fever because I heard that it was 105. And I knew I had to get it down. So every time someone walked by, couldn't talk to them, I'd reach out and grab them. And I would like shiver real hard. I'm trying to let them know that I am cold. Because as many of you know, you cannot have a fever and sweat at the same time. I know this. So I keep doing this until I get enough blankets that I will sweat. My temperature broke. It would go right back up, but I would sweat again and it would break. Ultimately though, what happened was I'm lying there in bed, and you know when you close your eyes, it's black, or we think it's black. What I saw was blacker than any black on this earth, blacker than coal. When I was a kid, half my family heated with coal. I know coal. Blacker than coal. And I remember with this analytical brain of mine, I'm thinking, how can that black be blacker than black? Then, out of that blackness came 2 black hands. And if I were lying here in bed with my head up there, those hands took a position over my torso. And now I'm thinking, how can I see very, very blacker than black hands in this very blacker than black space? I know today that what I was seeing was a change in the energy, the different energy of the hands. But it was amazing, so I'm fascinated by all this. But here's what the hands did. They began to move. I'll show you first. They were well, you can still hear me. They went up over my head, around, came back, and positioned themselves again over my torso. Paused, they both went up over my head again, around to the side, and positioned themselves again. Somewhere before, during, or after that second pass, I'm lying there still fascinated by this, and I'm thinking, oh, I know what this is death. And I went into the most incredible peace. It cannot be described. I can only call it peace. Then the hands, the third time, went up over my head, around to the side, and repositioned over me. As they did that, after the third pass, I swished up out of my body, and now floating around up in the ceiling of the hospital. What was interesting is, again, thinking, you know, it's your consciousness, it's your mind, the thought goes with you. So I'm looking down and I'm thinking, my goodness, I am higher than a ceiling. I better be careful, I'll hit my head. And I was literally, as spirit, trying to duck my head. And of course that wasn't very effective, but, and then I thought, well, I'm not hitting anything yet, I guess I'm okay. And I start looking around. Over there, empty hospital bed. Over here's a hospital bed with someone in it, and I keep looking around, just fascinated by the whole thing. I look back again at this bed with a person in it, and I went, oh, that's me, and kept right on looking around. That's how indifferent you are about your body when you see it. Well, for one thing, we never really see our own face. We don't really truly know what we look like. But I couldn't have been less interested if I had just taken off an old coat and thrown it on the bed and walked away. Because that wasn't me, because I was here, right? I was right up here. So then I start to see up in this area of the room, I see what's like a vision of a part of a bookshelf. It's got a couple of shelves and lots of books on it. But I also sense there are like thousands of books behind that. And then what began to happen is the energy, the information from all those books started just flowing into me. It was just coming at me, and I was knowing all these things. I would look at a book and point to it and go, well, in my mind, I think I'm pointing to it. I have no pointer anymore, but I say, oh, I know all that stuff. Now I understand that. And just chunks, everything in a book would come to me. And I could literally see the energy of that information coming to me. And then from some of the books, the information came to me in formula. I am not trained in high math. I doubt I could recognize the symbol for pi anymore, you know. But I was reading, there were like, I can still see it, so I'm counting them here, about 4 or 5 streams of formula coming into me, into my head, and all this knowledge. And I was reading them just as you would read a good line, an interesting line in a novel, okay? I was not reading the symbols, I was reading the content, I was reading what those formulas knew, what their content was, information, and it just kept coming, and it was... You start to understand how little we know here, and it is so grand when you perfectly understand the workings and the laws of the universe and how perfect it is, and there's only one word for it, and that is, it's beautiful, okay? But then over here in this corner of the room, I could see forever and ever and ever out into space. I could see stars, planets, the blue-black night sky. Then what I noticed was as this energy moved and information came to me, as I had thoughts and as I had motions, which are all energy, as all this energy is happening, I see it's affecting all that. It was all moving and changing ever so slightly. It was doing that. And I knew implicitly at that moment that everything is one. That everything we think and do and feel, it goes out forever and ever and ever, affecting everything. That's powerful. Be careful with it. But it wasn't just the stars and the planets that were moving and changing and being affected. It was everything between. It was the space. Now today, science knows that, I mean, it used to be energy and matter. Now they know it's all energy, and they know there is no space. They know everything is something. There's no space just because we can't see it or recognize it. And I knew that when I was 21 because I saw it all moving around and adjusting as this other energy moved around, and I knew this. So as I'm looking at this and looking at this and loving all this knowledge, and I think we all get the experience we need on the other side when we go. I always need to understand everything, so this is why I get all the knowledge, I think. But anyway, so I'm looking at all that, and I notice this far wall of the hospital room, and there's the window. The window at which I had just seen my little girl. I was overcome. You're right. I was overcome with the most excruciating agony. There is no word in this language, or probably in any language, that can describe. Even out of body, I felt this heaviness and this anguish because someone else would be raising my daughter. I would have no input and make sure she is taken care of. Instantly, I said, God, send me back to raise my daughter, and I will. And the rest of that sentence was a promise and a commitment I made to God. And that's where it stays. But as soon as that happened, I switched back into my body. And here, after I'm back in the body, was the best part of my experience. So now I'm lying there again. Black, 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 black is what I see lying there with my eyes closed. And out of that blackness came another hand, a single right hand. That right hand was white, and it was as far off the white scale as the black was off the black scale. This right hand positioned itself over my torso just as the black hands did. It started to move. It went up over my head and around and repositioned. And I'm just watching the beauty of this black and this white. It was awesome. Had no idea what was going to happen. A second time, up, around, and back, and repositioned. The third time it passed up over my head, got to hear the middle finger came out just a little bit there, touched me on my temple. I physically felt this. This wasn't part of just the vision. I felt it touch my temple. That right white hand touched my temple, came around my cheek down to my chin, and then repositioned. As it did, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, I knew to the core of my soul that I had just been touched by the hand of Christ. I knew I had been healed. I knew I would go home and raise my daughter. No matter how difficult life was, the end result would be I would have raised my daughter. I also knew I could quit trying to keep this inside piece of my brain that was still working. I didn't have to worry about keeping it active. I could just relax and sleep. I don't know if I slept 10 minutes, 10 hours, or a day. I just don't know. But when I woke up, I felt so good, was full of energy. I went running around getting people to get the doctor, I want to go home, I want to go home. Well, I raised such a ruckus, they did call the doctor. He came to the hospital. He said, Lois, I didn't think you were even going to make it. You cannot be up running around like this. We had a little chat about that. But eventually what I did was I put my hand on his arm, looked him in the eyes, and I said, you don't understand. I am healed. I have no idea why I said it that way, but that's what I said to him. There was a quiet moment, and he said, I'll make you a deal. You stay here tonight. If you feel this good tomorrow, you can go home. I stayed that night. I felt great the next day. And I went home and devoted my life to raising my daughter and keeping my promise. Now, what Larry likes to hear about these stories is how did it affect you? What was the result? Well, it's never ending, because after you've had an experience like that, the experiences go on and on and on, and they're fantastic. And they are so transforming that it's hard to just say it's this. However, I thought about that, just for you, Larry. So if I had to condense what was, say, isolating the NDE by itself, what were the immediate results, the effect? Well, one, you never fear death again. Well, because you know there's no such thing. You know that this life is so important. I mean, more important than the word important can imply. This life is important no matter who you are, where you are, what you do. Even if you think you have a small life, even if it's a troubled life, it doesn't matter. This life is important, and you want to get back and get it done and do it right. The best way possible. Your best, not somebody else's best or somebody else's expectation, but just your best. You also know that there's this guiding and protecting element out there that should you choose to engage it, it will never let you get too far off course. You also know that even the deepest, darkest valley on this earth can take you to exactly where you want to be, or it will contribute to who you need to be to get there. Okay? And quite honestly, I'm not so sure that too many of us need to know a whole lot more than that. So thank you and God bless.
Our next speaker, Robert. I met Robert at an IANDS conference, and here he comes. And he gave a presentation, excellent presentation. But then at the very end he said, you know, that wasn't the presentation I wanted to give you. And then he started in with another presentation. And it was better than the first. But then we reminded him, his time was up.
I'm done.
Robert Tremblay. All right, give him a applause.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you to IANDS for having us all here tonight, inspiring to sit back there and be, again, the last speaker, which I ran over at the IANDS conference, but that's the beauty of being the closing speaker of the conference. You just hold on for all you can. Again, thanks to IANDS for putting this on. I'm glad everybody could steal a few moments for themselves today and do something special for yourself. A new experience is always one of those Marvel moments, 20-second moments I call them. When Larry asked me to talk about my experience, one thing Larry will tell you about me is I can't do anything in 20 minutes in regards to my near-death experience. I'll give you a Cliff Note version. You're welcome to read my blog. You're welcome to access my email and my Facebook. I'm pretty vocal about my experience. I think it's important to share it. But one of the things I wanted to talk about seems to be a missing link that not a lot of us talk about. And I'm not going to make a judgment on why we don't talk about it, but it's an interesting facet. As an example, on my blog, I have 30 or 40 writings of various, I have the near-death experience itself, all the way to future memories and psychic abilities, to whatever it might be my experiences with death. My blog has been shared worldwide thousands of times. But here's an interesting facet. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people have shared the actual near-death experience portion of my blog. 20 or 30 have read the rest of the story. And I think it's an interesting dilemma that we have here in our experience, is that each and every near-death experience that you hear about is uniquely different. Ironically, it always seems to come down to this simple facet. The experience for each of us was exactly what we needed, in exactly the manner we needed it, at exactly the time we needed it. But they were all uniquely different. Now, we have 30 to 50 years of study go on. A few months ago, Dr. Bruce Grayson, one of the original founders of IANDS, was here, and he talked about the massive research data that's out there now on near-death experiences and what happens to us on these near-death experiences and for years afterwards. And Dr. Grayson said, interestingly, a facet, you can't study something you can't see. We all understand that, right? That doesn't seem to be much of an argument. So the way science studies things you can't see is they blow it through water at high speeds, and they measure the bubbles. I suspect, just like what we see in my blog research, where everybody wants to read about the experience, wants to read about the light, what I felt, what I saw, and I totally get it. But nobody reads about the after effects. Even last year at the conference, being the closing speaker, I waited all conference long. Not that IANDS did anything wrong, not that any of these conferences have done anything wrong. They're beautiful conferences. But I kept craving more information on the after effects. These are defined, according to IANDS, that 80% of people who've had a near-death experience say their life was forever changed. It's that impactful. Now, prior to my experience, which happened in February of 2011, I was a skeptic. Dying brain, hallucination, chemicals, it's got to be some sort of explanation. I frankly just didn't have time to think about it. I certainly have plenty of time now. My diagnosis in February of 2011 gave me, out of the blue, over a 6-month illness period, a terminal diagnosis with 30 days to live. On the 39th day, in and out of consciousness, I wasn't dreaming. I was too sick to dream. I hadn't dreamt for months. Frankly, it's been 4 years. I still don't dream. Oddly. Anyway, I found myself in a big open expanse that looked like I was standing on the edge of a red-lit, almost orangish peach red-lit volcano lip. Although there wasn't full of lava or heat or smoke or brimstone. That's just out of definition what I had to describe it as. I didn't understand what was happening to me. The essence of time seemed like 20 seconds, but it seemed like 20 years. Anyway, at this expanse, briefly I'll tell you the story. A small light started growing and grew bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was all white, and it probably was 12 feet, maybe. It was hard to describe that kind of distance. It seemed out of my reach. And this light seemed to be rotating on in and of itself. It was vibrating. It was blowing a breeze at me. It had a taste and a smell. And I don't ever remember that in a dream, but at the moment, I guess I just assumed it was a dream. Anyway, in the light, a face started emerging in different tones. The higher tones were bluer than the white, but it was a definitive face emerging from this giant light, and then there were words. It was just that simple. He didn't speak. I didn't speak, per se, as far as moving of the lips, but there were definitive words, and it was a question, and I'd already kind of given up in my hospital bed, 39 days into a 30-day time limit. I was pretty much all done and had conceded to it, had made my peace with where I needed to be. But the question that came out was, are you ready? And funny, it comes out, are you ready? And it was really a lot like that. Although there was no lips moving, and again, I had already kind of given up and conceded to my death, and I was okay with it, in what I assumed. But ironically, my response was quick and was without thought, and I don't ever remember speaking, but there it came out. I said, no, I'm not ready. The last words spoken were assumingly from him again. There was no question in my mind, although again his lips didn't move, and the swirling of the light in his face, and he had long flowing hair and a very aged face, and he was very trusting. So I said, no, I'm not ready. And a smile broke from his face and throughout the light, and started kind of cracking, and he said, "There's something important you're supposed to do." And his smile spread and spread, and I had an overwhelming urge to reach out, being the boy that I am, experimental and curious. And I touched what I assumed at the time was the face of God. Didn't know how to explain it. Within minutes, it seemed like hours, but within seconds probably, I awoke at my hospital bed, basically in and out of a coma at that point. And I was awake, vibrant, conscious. I demanded to see every one of my doctors, and within an hour they were all standing in my room with their jaws down to their ankles saying, "How is this near comatose man suddenly conscious?" And I went around the room and asked each and every one of them what chances are that they could save me to this point, because, quote unquote, there was something important I was supposed to do. And I told them that. That was the beginning of life-saving treatment that would take 6 surgeries to remove one form of a carcinoma or another over the last 4 years. 1 year worth of basically being a shut-in under terrible toxic treatment that brought me to hospice for a couple of months, and I spent 2 months in hospice on no treatment at all and gained 60 pounds and went into remission. So that is how my story went. The biggest issue for me has and always will be the after effects. They are profound. They are constant. They're a little scary at first. And we're not talking about them. If you want to understand and you want to find proof about this, whatever brought you here for this experience today, I think everybody has a smack of desperation of seeking some answer for themselves. The answer, as lovely as these experiences are not in the man in the white face and the white light and everybody's experience. They were so beautiful and so lovely, and I think they're so magnificently uplifting to read. But the real proof that we might all be missing isn't in your experience or my experience. It's in how, prior to my experience, I couldn't change one thing about my personality. I changed everything about myself, literally almost overnight. It's unexplainable. I don't understand it. We're trying to understand it. But some of it is just about sharing it and being able to talk about it. You don't have to have a near-death experience to do it. A spiritual transformative event can do it too. But these changes that we go through are rapid. They're crazy, scary. And to be honest, I'm 4 years in and it hasn't stopped. I heard you speak about it. It's an everyday evolution, and I'm grateful for every day that I have. I don't know what happens with me. I've survived this 4 times. Who knows? You don't know either. But I guess that's why we're all sitting here today, is to try to enjoy that one now moment for ourselves and steal it for ourselves. I urge you, if you get some time, go online and read IANDS.org and read about the after effects. Everybody loves to read about the stories. We still have yet to break the courage barrier to talk about the after effects and how we went through a lot of stuff to try to assimilate back into the normal world, to be considered normal by normal standards, if you will. So I guess I have a couple questions to depart and close with is, why aren't we talking about the after effects? Because they're synchronistic to all of us, timed almost exactly the same for all of us. Although our experiences differ, our after effects are definitive, tangible, studyable, and important. So I support any obvious research that's going on with that, and there are some movies and some awareness coming out on these things that I think are important. IANDS is sponsoring the documentary Back from the Light, which will be featured at the conference this year. I think that's important work. Again, guys, when things start piling on you with after effects for us, it's not an easy accommodation to figure these things out. So I urge you to, at least avail yourself of the information, read about it, and decide for yourself. But I think, again, the answers you look for, you might actually find in some of those books. And on IANDS' website, you'll find plenty of access to books on the after effects of the near-death experience. For now, the biggest after effect for me is standing in front of a crowd of nice people smiling back at you, and this is the best part for me, is engaging other people, just telling the story. I don't take a position on what happened to me and how I've healed impossible things. I don't jump up and down and scream and holler, but I do tell the story. What you do with it is certainly up to you from here, but again, like anything in life, it is what we make it. So I hope you make it beautiful. Thanks for being here. But never been seen one, or probably wouldn't have met one had I. But here's the reality. Almost 3 years exactly after my experiences touching this face of God that I thought, in this dream that I thought was the most vivid, peaceful experience of my life, I thought, still do. 3 years later, I get a calendar at Christmas time from my mother, big famous thing. Everybody probably has a mom who does the calendar, and there's family photos. And there we all fight for the cover. That's a big thing. Everybody wants to be on the cover. I'm no different. So here I am dying, and I'm looking at this calendar going, I better be on the cover. I'm not on the cover. But on my birthday month, I open up, and there's an old picture I'd never seen before. And it was a man's face. That man's face was the same one in the light. The man's face was my grandfather, my father's father, who died 22 years before my birth. I'd never seen a picture of him in my life. It's called a veridical perception of something that you didn't know at that time. And interestingly, statistically and research-wise, people usually take, I heard some of you talk about it, 2 to 3 years before you actually realize you've had an experience. I thought it was a dream. In a time where I was too sick to dream, but nonetheless, that's what I just didn't know what to call it. So I think that should answer that question.
Does anybody else want to respond to that?
Well, I just would like to mention the time aspect to that. You were wondering if you see anything that affects how will the world be in a couple hundred years. Was that the point? You don't want to know, trust me. I've seen a little. But when you're on the other side, there is no time. And there is no concern for these physical matters any more than there was any concern I had for the body I left behind. So I think the time element is why that doesn't happen. There is no time there. It means nothing. Any other questions? Anyone got a question for Larry?
Do any of the other speakers want to say anything? Okay. James?
The other night, I have a large movie library, and my best friend forever, P.J. Anderson, is also a roommate now. We watched by Centennial Man, Robin Williams. And it came to me, this is why, because we had a lot of choices to watch the film. We watched this. This was about a robot that lived 200 years, and his whole quest was to be more human. So I thought, this is a huge message for me. Why? Why did I embark on this journey? To learn to experience. And it comes down to a single denominator. My soul self wanted to, and still does, experience all that is possible. To learn or to embrace as many people and to help awake as many people. So it had a profound effect on me. I had tears in my eyes watching this old film about a robot that wanted to be human. And he did. He went through all kinds of mechanical changes to become human. So I would say, why? Why for me to embark on this journey that doesn't seem like it wants to end? All of us have that soul self, what I call the soul self, that has the body. It's not the other way around. You think, well, yeah, I have the soul. No. The soul has you. That's really how it works. Really how it works. So I am enjoying my transformation and how others are transformed. I see it in all kinds of people. Wherever you go, you interact with people. It is part of soul's purpose to learn unconditional love. To tell them how much you love them, how appreciated you are that they're even here. Here's the deal. You chose to be here. You chose to be here. You chose to be here this evening. You chose to have the life that you have. Your belief creates your reality, and everything is a choice. And I'm so glad that I chose this particular mission for this time around.